Okay, this particular essay is built around the word communion. Communion, a form of communication, the sharing or exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially on a mental or spiritual level, but also a particular Christian worship service at which bread and wine are consecrated, then shared in memory of ultimate sacrifice. From the Latin communionem, or communis, meaning free, open, familiar, in common, shared by all, and intercourse. From the prefix com, together, plus unus, meaning oneness or united. Words, of course, started it all. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Then came Adam and Eve by that Word. At the deific command, Adam from the earth and Eve from Adam's ribs, which creation must have then led to the first clumsy attempts at sign language. That impromptu waving of the arm and hand, perhaps, just to get Eve's attention, followed by her curious reciprocation, and there you have that inaugural greeting. But then, just as quickly, back to words. In particular, Adam's first words, after looking at Eve, both in their birthday suits, gobsmacked as he must have been. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, which I like to think of as the first love poem ever recited, then put to paper. My first words, on the other hand, were not quite so poetic. Ball, and then soon after, basketball, because I loved the game from the beginning, and Magic Johnson was my hero, and I dreamed of playing in the NBA for the Los Angeles Lakers. To that end, I have a Polaroid that my mom snapped of me probably not long after uttering the latter of those first words. Fresh out of the tub, soaked to the bone, also in my birthday suit, shooting the rock on a Fisher-Price hoop because you cannot put a price on dreams. Of course, we do not know if Adam's brain came pre-programmed with words for everything in that garden or not, let alone the means to create poetry. Maybe he was also given dominion over naming conventions. And if so, then surely he almost immediately began looking around in keen observation, grasping at words like fruit from a tree in order to find the right combinations to describe the things he was seeing, like trees and fruit and lions and lambs. But also, later, after they were kicked out of the garden and Eve's apples were now the only ones to be tempted by, the things he was feeling inside too, which in turn led to communication of a different kind, the lilt of body language, that give and take of the highest together, a united communion, this holy consummation of words and sometimes the absence of them. All of which is to say that long before Adam planted seeds in the ground or even in Eve, the seeds of language were deep and blooming. Not to forget the prayers that followed the fall. Adam, on his knees, outside the garden, having christened a rock as an altar to the Lord over which to sacrifice and seek divine help and ask for reassurance. Those first secrets of the heart sent upward like little notes anxiously passed across the schoolroom because the outside world was suddenly that. Lord, are you there? Can I get a do-over? I don't know what to do, and I'm scared. But also, later, I don't know where I put my animal skin pants and I'm late for work. Can you help me find them? Or, for the love of you, please make my kids stop fighting. Cain is killing me. Or, hey, Lord, it's me again. Eve is mad at me and I don't know why, and she says I should know, but I don't know because I can't read minds, but you can. So, just a hint, please. Which passionate personal pleadings are not unlike the many I drafted from my knees, but before my bed instead, with a few carefully selected stuffed animals spread out in sacred offering, including one named lamb chops. Then my hands raised high to the heavens and my voice low, usually seeking lost things too, like a sock or a tie or a single cheap penny loafer more than once, but also on behalf of unrealized dreams, like making the cut during the spelling bee, or making the basketball team, or making the grades in school, or making any number of girls fall in love with me, and thy will be done, but please make it so Tiffany doesn't move away, because we're forever. And I've even got it in writing, right here in puffy paint, Lord, on this 100% cotton t-shirt, white like snow. And not unlike the love letters written in my Lake Grove elementary school days either, because letters too are a form of prayer. They were for me anyway. Like the one I once folded up into an origami crane, then passed underneath the table when my teacher wasn't looking, feeling my aloneness, hoping at least for love's confirmation by way of a side glance and a repressed smile, or that sudden blush in the cheeks. Kyra, do you like me? Circle 1. Yes, no, or maybe so. Or the ones on which I would declare my love in writing so small or cryptic that neither magnifying glass nor Rosetta Stone could decipher it, akin to that single grain of rice in an old curiosity shop off of a pier in Seattle, on which the entire Lord's Prayer has been painstakingly written. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive, deliver us, lead us not into temptation, and all that. Which makes me wonder, did Jesus, in his condescension, ever feel for a girl that same ardent tug on the heartstrings? By the 6th grade, did he too notice the tiny seeds of faith blossoming in her bosom, the way the universe did in the beginning when it also was without shape? And did he marvel at the beauty of his dad's creation? Did the greatest love letter ever given us ever bravely put pen to paper, then pass it on through a friend and pray for a quick affirming note in return? Did he too lay awake all night dreaming up ways to bump into her, reasons to talk to her, imagining what he would say when he did, like, I've seen angels before, but none as beautiful as you. Or, yeah, my dad created gravity, but I still can't help falling in love. Or, I will worship you to the day I die. Or maybe he longed to picnic with her under his favorite olive tree, hoped to place the mysteries of the kingdom upon her quiet lips, or in a particularly weak moment, being tempted in all things, also desired to teach her to speak in tongues. Or maybe he, too, got up the next day and rode his bike to the local marketplace with a Pete Rose card between the spokes, because no one is beyond redemption. Then bought for his crush a can of grape-flavored crushed soda, that holy juvenile wine, as his little way of saying in not so many words, my love for you is like this shook-up soda, full and ready to burst. At the very least, he also must have written a poem about her, that art by which we remember, or taken up an entire page in his journal just to declare in big block letters who he loved beyond the shadow of death. Yes? Or before her beauty was the Word himself suddenly without words. With that in mind, more than the love letters penned and passed, I treasure most of all the ones given me over the years, many of which I keep in a chest of keepsakes, a 42-quart durable plastic lifetime portmanteau, if you will, which is not very big, but big enough because so many more love notes, the kind written on the walls of the heart by the lives of the people who pass through, are kept behind my chest, where there is room unlimited. Love notes like napkins with encouraging messages written in the corner, the kind my mom used to write then sneak into my school lunches in elementary school and junior high and sometimes high school too, because you are never too old for encouragement. In particular, the blue crumpled one I keep in a little plastic bag, which I must have kept above the others because it captured the momentous end of one journey, the school year, and the much anticipated beginning of another, all those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer to come. Have a fun-filled, fabulous final day. XOXOXOXOXO, Mom. Or the occasional note from my dad, this one in particular on yellow perforated paper, which I will not use too many words to describe because he was, in matters of the heart, sometimes a man of few words too. and this letter was no exception. Which is just to say, dads sometimes express love in all caps or between the lines, or, in this case, both. I am your father, and yet I have learned many things from you that have helped me in my life. You are compassionate to people that have less abilities or talents than yourself. This is a very good thing, Dad. Followed by this postscript, which above all says I love you as if the phrase itself was written thereon. P.S. I will always be able to beat you at basketball. Or the fading sticky note from my Uncle Tom, who found his way into the Lakers' locker room after a game when I was around 10, and, even more miraculously, came out with a booklet signed by the entire Showtime team. Dear Arthur, I clipped the pages where the Lakers autographed this program for you. Love, Tom. And in the center of that program, on a full-page picture of himself, this personal note, which I now have in a frame on my wall. To Arthur, good luck, Magic Johnson. Or the school assignments and analysis papers, harshly critiqued by teachers who were, to the point, if only because they knew I was capable of more, which I did not keep but think about when I flipped through the couple of papers I did, in which I was finally able to meet or exceed the rubric, and which, like the last English paper of my 10th grade year, bear left of the heading my teacher's penciled praise, made more meaningful because of the literary missteps preceding it. A+. I don't know what else to say, except this shows you have mastered the skills presented. Not to forget, at the bottom of my box of memories, my school yearbooks, those chosen vessels from which we tend to base our teenage confidence, and all the messages scribbled inside. Not necessarily the empty call me or the traditional stay sweet or don't change, but the meaningful ones from the few friends who didn't even need to write anything really, because we knew without institutional inscription, but still did. Like this one, from a girl I had a crush on in the 7th grade, across the margins in purple ink, which I scoured my yearbook for after receiving it back from the masses. I'll see you this summer for sure. I hope we will be friends for a very long time. And among my keepsakes too, a small 2-inch secret box, or so the accompanying card calls it, which that same girl gave me a very long time later, at the end of our senior year, made of polished teak wood like a Chinese puzzle box which can only be opened when certain components are aligned. Practical, that same card reads, for keeping safe life's small treasures, like keys or love notes or even smaller secret boxes, which brings to mind the puzzle that is the heart inside the puzzle that is the body. 2, but 1. Or, in my case, a single slip of paper with Holy Writ tucked inside. Shall not God search this out? For he knoweth the secrets of the heart. Psalms chapter 44, verse 21. Which verse I turned over in my mind like a puzzle of its own less than 12 months ago, not even 25 years removed from the day she gave it to me, when, among family and friends, I stepped foot again into the church building we attended as kids to prepare myself for her funeral, which I will not speak on other than to say I wish parents did not have to lose children. And from the number of people there and the number of stories shared and shed, it was clear that she wrote something on their hearts too. And if God so loved the world that he gave us his only begotten Son, then I don't know what that says about how much he loves me, because he gave me 4. All of them created by way of invitation, that familiar sign language, a wink and a nod, then her arm beckoning, come hither, with little room for misinterpretation, and the deep communion that followed, leaving me illiterate, dumbstruck even, but her blossoming and blooming until was plucked from her the fruit of my loins. Each child among the greatest love notes ever passed into my quiet, shaking, outstretched hands. uncertain as I was then that I could adequately prepare them for the outside world. Lord, are you there? Which role of father subsequently led to many more little notes given me across the years, usually on birthdays or other special occasions, like this one from my firstborn, age 8 at the time. Happy Valentine's Day, Daddy. Crush the hate out of your Valentine. And underneath his words, a picture of a heart with a tough-looking face and really buff arms and really buff legs. Or this one from my last-born son, wishing me a happy Father's Day, but this time above a drawing that appears to be a pile of poop with flies, but is, or so he claimed, a scoop of ice cream with little hearts floating around it. Truth be told, I am not entirely convinced, because I was a young boy once too, and I still can speak boy, and one does not need a Rosetta Stone to recognize poop and flies, nor understand, in the language of boy, those things can mean love too. Which cards don't come as often, now that they've grown, but which have been replaced by the occasional but equally meaningful text message, like little shards of love randomly in the night. Thanks, Dad, or you are my hero, or more bravely sometimes, I love you. But you know what love note stands out to me most of all? A card from my ex-wife, the year before she chose to mark herself with an X, which may seem like a strange note to include in this essay, since it was, in part, a lack of communication that led to our ultimate dissolution. Lord, I don't know why she is mad at me. But which I am including just the same. On a 5x7 painting of Christ, who, in the print, is in the garden amid a grove of trees, feeling forsaken, sending electronic prayers upward in the hopes of receiving at least a confirmation of receipt, because it is showtime. God, I am writing you this note just to say hi. I will pretend I'm not anxious for a reply, but I am. Only to be met by silence, left on his own instead, for a moment anyway, kneeling before a rock, the rock of our salvation, over which he is about to be crushed under the weight of everything we have ever felt, love and lust, happiness and hostility, all before making the sacrifice of a lifetime in order to bring about poetic justice and, more mercifully, deliver us like magic from our mistakes, washing us clean, making what once was scarlet now white like snow. And on the back of that card, simply this, in her once familiar, now strange hand: I am grateful for second chances. And then a heart. No name, just a heart. And I think, does anything else really matter? And this too. I also am grateful for second chances and failed first chances. Because without the fall, there is no rising. Without loss, no found. Without hurt, no greater happiness. Without hate, no greater love. There is no other way more sure than the heart, which universal, blood-pumping, life-giving symbol is the only thing that saves. The only sacrament worth remembering. The only tool powerful enough from the beginning to crush hate in the end. And the alignment of that secret box, the only puzzle worth solving. And the final evaluation of that analysis paper, the only grade that matters. And the portmanteau that it is, the only baggage worth opening up to people. And the treasures inside, the only keepsakes worth making room for. And the foreign language of that organ, the only language worth mastering. And if someone can write the Lord's Prayer on a single grain of rice, how much more can be written on our hearts? By friend and family and teacher and student and stranger and ex-lover and potential new lover alike. All of us of the same dirt and bone and flesh. And if love was not our first word, then let us, in honor of the Word who loved us from the beginning, make it our last. More than that, can we make it last? In this thing, then, let us consecrate our efforts. Let us be united. Let us bring this dream to fruition. Let us make our hoary declarations of love into actions new and living. Let us strive to lift others up instead of put them down, to hold others in an embrace rather than in contempt, to be temperate rather than temperamental, to pray for the gift of compassion rather than prey on those in need of compassion, to choose deference over difference, to be more concerned with publishing peace than breaking in pieces, to forego and forget and forgive and foresee, and for heaven's sake love much, and for our neighbor's sake love much, and for our own sake love much, and for the sake of the generations to come who will surely follow in our surly and synthetic footsteps, if not our sturdy and sympathetic ones, love, 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 love much. Yes, love. That holy, saving communion open to all, shared by all, and free for all because the price has already been paid. And if we can, on the walls of our hearts, write that story, write that love letter, it will, in the words of my Father, be a very good thing. P.S. I will always be able to beat you at basketball.